The United States is owned by foreign corporations. Nixon opened it up for foreign trade. And when Nixon opened up for foreign trade, the people of Europe and the common market in Spain and different places, they don't care about the United States forest. And in short, the United States has been sold out by people who really don't care for anything but money. I've had all the money in the world 3 times. I had to give it back to keep the game going.
What game?
The game. It's a game. Money is a game. It's only real to the people who work for it. The people that don't need to work for money, it's a monopoly game. It's a game of paper. It's all on paper. I've got a production company, and I've got a recording company, and I've got a mansion in Beverly Hills, and I've got Rolls Royces and Ferraris. I've got everything money can buy, but it's all on paper. Everything's done through the companies and through the tax loopholes, and the people that live on that level, they don't care about the average honest mule that just goes back and forwards to work. They don't care about the children that are in the streets that are thrown out of this upper echelon of existence. And then when all the children fall down into me, on my level, I pretty much identify with them because I was a throwaway also. So it goes to the point of, do you really care?
When you said...
And who does care? And if anybody cares, they're considered crazy. I've been 15 years in the nut ward for trying to stop the trees from being cut down, from trying to rearrange a lifestyle of a bunch of people who don't want to change. But they're going to change because the cold wind is blowing.
Okay, I'm back. I was trying to make all of these videos at once, but there's so much to tell about Byron Pryor. And as I upload them, I'm trying to click them private, but I sort of saw some people snatch them before I was all done. I suspect it's Dirty Dickie Dean and Dana Durford. They have a habit of working all night. If it is, fuck you, Dana. Same with you, Dirty Dickie Dean. I'm surprised that you're not in jail yet. It's what the conversation I had with the mayor of Sylvan Lake and Constable Reed of the RCMP a couple of times. But anyway, all that said, back to Byron Pryor. Byron Pryor, because of his work on the drilling rigs, wound up working all over the world. I remember him telling me about working down in East Africa and stuff. And one of the things he confessed to and put in writing was he used to come back to Newfoundland quite a bit, you know, drilling rigs and all that, but he was a mule for a drug dealer. He used to, apparently, he didn't elaborate too much, but he did put it in writing. He called himself a mule. He said he even got caught, how he would apparently lug the drugs or whatever back to Newfoundland or whatever the hell he was up to. I didn't ask too many questions, didn't care. I'm not a drug dealer.
And I'm gonna hit my bong because it's stuck in my head. This is Narnia outside version. I can't like tell what location it is because it's supposed to be a secret, I guess, but it's really kind of awesome. Cool. Bong rip. Woo. I love being enthusiastic for videos that I'm not really enthusiastic about. Nick Tello just texted me. Okay, nice.
I'm not a biker. I'm a biker, I'm a motorcyclist, but I'm not a 1%er and I'm not a drug dealer. I smoke too many cigarettes, but I barely drink, don't smoke dope, don't give a shit what people say to you otherwise. The most offensive thing is to call me a diddler because the thing I treasure most in the world is children, all children. You harm a child in front of me and I'll bury you in the yard. But anyway, that said, Byron had confessed to being a mule, and he put it in writing. I don't judge a man. You can't say he's a bad fellow because he did that. He regretted it, put it in writing, and confessed to it. what happened to him as he was a child, he had no control over. What he opted to do on certain days, well, he can answer to his own conscience about that. But anyway, he was a mule and he was caught, and the fellow that got him off was the very fellow he complains about, T. Alex Hickman.
It was Friday morning when we set sail. We were not far from the land. When the captain...
It's very unfortunate that the men of our province, who spend most of their lives away from home to earn a living, can't come back to their homes and actually know that their wives or their children are theirs and theirs alone. It's a situation that's been like it for many years. These business people control our families, they control our legal system, and they even control our courts. My name's Byron Pryor. I'm from Grubstake, Newfoundland. It's a small outport town of 2,500 people. I'd like to speak to you just before Father's Day about my dad. He was a Marine captain. He went overseas with his group in 1939 from Newfoundland, volunteered in Her Majesty's Navy, arrived in Great Britain to be posted on Her Majesty's ship, the Victory, and returned back after 6 years at war, missing 2 fingers on his left hand, and here he's back very distinguished with his mom on a small island in Fortune Bay called Sagona Island. My dad was a mariner. After the war in 1949, he began working for the CNR, it was called then, the Canadian National Railways. After Newfoundland joined Confederation in 1949 with Mr. Smallwood, the CNR came to Newfoundland as part of Confederation and actually later became CN Marine. My dad started working on the CN boats as a seaman and worked there for a couple of years, 49, 50, and part of 51. After that time, he left the Canadian National ships and started working for Newfoundland private companies, private families, in Fortune Lake and Lake Brothers and in Grubstake Buffett's. And basically in the beginning, his life was working for a Grubstake situation where he spent his time mostly away on the ships while our mother stayed at home, had children, and used his income to support the children through taking up credit at the company where my father worked. Dad was a captain who was liked by everyone. He didn't have people work for him, he worked with them. He got people from smaller towns to come work with him because he didn't want a large turnover. He liked to have family men. And I remember he would go get Paddy Power or Sylvester Hines in smaller towns on the Byrons Peninsula where we lived. These men were experienced seamen who knew Captain Randall and all liked to work with him. Our father, unfortunately, 6 years in the Second World War, walked to the beaches of Dunkirk with blood to his neck and gun over his head. Medals, 7 medals, 1 Distinguished Service Medal. Could taste the blood in his mouth on the beaches. He spent 6 years at war, and that wasn't the biggest and greatest war that he suffered in his lifetime. My dad came home from the war, a gentleman with his mom. Unfortunately, when he came back, he married our mother. I'm the oldest of 12 living children. 2 of my oldest brother, Tommy, is dead. My sister next to me, Ella Small, is also dead. And more than dubious circumstances for both of them. My dad came home and in '51 married a woman called Harriet Snook. Harriet's dad was also a captain who worked longer than my dad for a Grubstake. His name was Captain Tom Snook. Made friends with my father, and because they were friends, got exposed to our mother, Harriet Snook. Well, a lady that was very promiscuous, very sexually active, and very mentally defective, and to be kind, a very sick person. My father, as I said, walked through blood up to his neck in a war, but came home to a woman and married a woman that made him swallow his own blood. She punched him in the face regularly, broke his nose. He couldn't touch her to defend himself because of the connections and the friends she had in the Justice Department and customers of hers as well. And his own blood ran down his face in his own house while his children watched. On one occasion he was chased up the hill with a steaming kettle of hot water when our mother wanted to scold him to death because he wouldn't sign adoption papers by the end of 1969. My 11-year-old sister, as in the Grubstake days, was impregnated by a person in our town who had much power and control. And to help cover up the situation, my mother had tried for 68 and 69 to convince my dad to adopt this baby that was living at our house. So the person who was actually responsible for impregnating an 11-year-old child wouldn't be questioned and it wouldn't be thought of after. My dad finally consented and signed the papers, and this child became officially a member of our family. She was actually a daughter of a 42-year-old lawyer and my 11-year-old sister. For me, this was more than devastating. I was 13 at the time, and I was outside the building when this child rape occurred and forced to stay there, but I could do nothing about it. Our dad had quite a difficult situation in his own house, really. Our mother called it her castle, and in fact that's the way she kept things. Our dad, many times when his ship came in, I was sent with a note to tell him to stay on board his ship. She had company at home, and for him to give me his check or any money that he'd had and tell him to stay on board the ship. And in one case, told if he wants to come home, smack him in the mouth. Well, I never smacked my dad in the mouth, ever. I would never do it for anyone. As children, we weren't to show our dad any affection. If he was allowed in our house, my sisters or I couldn't sit on his lap. We couldn't give him a hug. Never got a kiss from anyone, including his wife. My sister Donna and I, regularly, I waited for my dad's ship just about every time. My sister Donna grew attached to her dad, so I'd go to school. After school, if my dad was in, I'd take my little sister to the boat with me. So we would have our few minutes with Dad before we went back to the house. Donna was about the only affection from the girls that my dad got. My dad always said that she looked exactly like his sister Melinda when she was young, and he was correct. She was very pretty and looked like our Aunt Melinda.